Jai Hind everyone. The Indo-US extradition treaty is now again in news. Recently, after the indictments made by the US Department of Justice, this treaty has now been making rounds and being discussed again. This time, the treaty is being in news because the indictment made by the US Department of Justice involves a few Indian names in the transnational crimes. Previously, when this treaty was discussed and was invoked, was during the extradition of Tahavvur Rana and Headley. Now, even though the links in Tahavvur Rana case were pretty direct, but it took years for the extradition of Tahavvur Rana. Now, this time, Indian gangster Lawrence Bishnoi has been named. And let us see how much time does it take after the US indictment. Now, the question comes up is that even when the US Department of Justice has made indictment, will this extradition be made immediately? And what all are the legal challenges involved in this? What will be the role of the central government and how the Indian government will cooperate with the US Department of Justice? Now, the question comes up is that this time, will this invocation of Indo-US extradition treaty result into some geopolitical tension or a bigger geopolitical issue? So let us see all of these things in this session today. Now, when we start off with this discussion, let us see that why this treaty has now been in news. Okay. Now, recently, the US authorities have unsealed indictments charging 37 people across US, Canada, and Europe. Okay. Now, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has announced 50,000 US dollar reward upon Goldie Barar. Okay. Now, the reward has been announced for any information leading to the arrest and extradition of Goldie Barar, who has been a key aide of gangster Lawrence Bishnoi. Now, both of these men have been named as having ordered the 23 assassination of pro-Khalistani figure Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. Now, this indictment also identifies a few more names. Okay. Now, prominent names that have been identified are Jaggu Bhagwanpuria and Ravinder Singh Dhanda on the similar charges. Okay. So, the US law authorities have indicated that they will seek the extradition of several individuals from India who are linked to organized crime networks after they have unsealed the indictment. Okay. Now, all of these decisions have been taken 2 days back against the members, okay, and against the 3 India linked gangs. Clear? Now, in this situation, if we see, there have been various charges that have been made. Okay. Now, when we talk about this Operation Hardball, okay, the allegations are on Lawrence Bishnoi syndicate allegedly running a transnational networking involving the racketeering. Okay. So, this essentially involves or talks about the RICO conspiracy. Okay. Also around murder, extortion, and drug trafficking of around 1,000 kg of cocaine, heroin, and the other seized goods. Okay. Now, this has also unearthed a conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute controlled substances, that is, these drugs in the US. Clear? Moreover, the distribution and possession with an intent, okay, is again punishable. Okay. What all are the other important conspiracies? Moreover, it has also been said that there have been conspiracies to deal in firearms without a license. Okay. Even possession of a machine gun, okay, and criminal forfeitures have been made in these cases. Okay. Now, the Nijjar links again makes it a relatively a transnational issue. Okay. In this situation, the indictment connects the network to the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar that had took place in Canada. And the US officials have formally indicated that they may seek Bishnoi's extradition from India. But the bigger issue is that will the government of India allow extradition of Lawrence Bishnoi? Okay. The second question is this treaty binding upon the parties and which all cases are being involved in this. Okay. Now, there have been various questions that can a gangster already lodged in an Indian jail be sent to the US for trial? The question is exactly why India-US extradition treaty is now back in focus again. Okay, and is something that is being largely discussed right now. Moving ahead, when we see the Lawrence Bishnoi case, okay, or what all are the essential elements that have been revolving around this case? Why suddenly Lawrence Bishnoi is now making the international names? Okay, now current status. Already Lawrence Bishnoi is in judicial custody in the Sabarmati Central Jail since 2023. The allegations are, despite being jailed, he allegedly used smuggled phones to direct hits, extortion, and human smuggling abroad. Okay, so there have been very serious allegations that have been made on Lawrence Bishnoi. Okay, the US indictment specifically names him for RICO conspiracy, as we have previously discussed around the racketeering, murder, and extortion targeting the Indian diaspora. Ironically, he had cultivated a public image as a nationalist religious figure, even as he allegedly directed the assassinations across the borders. Okay, so we can see that how essentially, okay, these things have been linked around this. Okay, so when we have a closer look onto this, we can understand that this is not just a crime story. This case has now become a case of treaty and the procedure. The US believes that the jail in India have not been able to stop the alleged network activities of Lawrence Bishnoi. And this has now forged a bigger question of cross-border justice. Okay. Next, if we see the treaty and the basics involved. Okay. So again, the Lawrence Bishnoi angle turns the treaty from a legal document into a live geopolitical and criminal justice issue. Lawrence Bishnoi has already been facing around 20 cases in India. So question is, why US wants him now? Okay, and how does this treaty enable the demands that are being raised by the US Department? Clear? Now, this treaty was signed in 1997, okay, and had replaced the 1931 UK-US treaty. Okay, dual criminality, the act. Now, this is the biggest thing. Okay, so whatever cognizance has to be taken around this primary issue. Okay, the act states that it must be a crime punishable by over a year imprisonment in both the countries. Okay, in case of Indian nationals, they are not automatically barred from extradition. Political offenses, okay. Now, this treaty excludes political offenses, but murder, terrorism, and drug trafficking are explicitly exempted from this exception. Okay. Rule of specialty, the accused can only be tried for the offenses for which extradition was granted. Okay. So this means that this treaty creates a legal route. Okay. But this treaty is not a guarantee. The US charges of murder and drug trafficking are easily satisfying the dual criminality. Okay. Now, how do they satisfy the dual criminality? Okay. So, when we see about the US laws, okay, primarily the two charges upon Lawrence Bishnoi are murder and drug trafficking. Clear? Now, we do have the corresponding laws in India. We have got the IPC related laws and the NDPS Act around this. Clear? So, these charges are easily satisfying the dual criminality under the Indian laws as well. So, there is a legal way through which Lawrence Bishnoi can be extradited. Okay, but how does this process work? It essentially becomes understated. Okay. So, when we understand the entire process, the US Department of Justice has to make a formal request to the US State Department. Okay. Then, through the diplomatic channel, the request shall reach the Ministry of External Affairs. The MEA then shall consult the Ministry of Home Affairs, CBI, and the legal advisors for prima facie scrutiny in this case. Okay. Then, the Indian magistrates and court would conduct a judicial scrutiny and they would examine the evidence and dual criminality. Okay. Finally, the union government will have to give the final political approval. Now, here lies the biggest catch. Okay. Even when all the conditions are fulfilled, okay, these are not binding upon the union government. Okay. Moreover, the extradition will take place only once it has been approved by the union government. Clear? So, even if supposedly the union government does not allows it, okay, it can be pushed through High Court and Supreme Court, but this can again take years. Okay, so even if US wants extradition, political procedures matter the most. Okay, remember, we must not forget about the Tahavvur Rana case. And even though the evidences were directly linked to Tahavvur Rana, but it took years of legal back and forth before he was finally sent to India. Okay. Moreover, it has not been the case that US has already supported us. Okay. We had evidences against Warren Anderson. Okay. The charges were also made, the requests were also made, but still Anderson could not be extradited. Okay. Moving ahead, what all are the challenges here? Clear? Now, first and foremost are the competing domestic cases. Now, Bishnoi faces 20 plus serious cases in India. India can postpone surrender until domestic trials or the sentences are completed. Okay. Then the Indian courts will scrutinize if US evidence meets Indian evidentiary standards or not. Rules of specialty must apply. US cannot try him for crimes not listed in the request. If evidence shifts, they will ultimately end up hitting a wall. Political and diplomatic timing. India-US ties are strong, but India-Canada tensions over Niger add a geopolitical layer of caution into this. Okay. Moreover, the legal appeals can stretch proceedings for years, even decades. Clear? So even if a route is there, but still this mere indictment cannot force India to make this extradition immediately. Okay. Now, this essentially is the core concept that has to be understood. Okay. Extraditable does not mean immediately extradited. Okay. The treaty exists, but India retains full legal and political discretion over the extradition of Lawrence Bishnoi. Okay. Moreover, if we talk about the precedents and we compare them, okay, in the Tahavvur Rana case, he was extradited from US to India over the 2008 Mumbai attack. So you can see whatever the timeline was there. Okay, a large lesson was learned by India. India-US extradition can happen, but it took over a decade of legal battles. Clear? Next, historically, India and the US have seen limited extraditions both ways. Strategic ties have helped, but do not guarantee speed. Okay. Finally, if we legally see into this, if formally pursued, the Bishnoi matter is likely to be long contested legal war rather than a quick handover. Clear? So again, this will be a huge legal issue. Okay. Moreover, the past cases have shown that the courts, evidence, treaty terms, and political safeguards matter the most holistically. Okay. US wants him, but India can hold the cards, okay, on time. Okay. India has got a dominance in this situation, and India will try to leverage its position in this situation. Clear? So we can finally understand a few more things, that the US India extradition treaty, even though has been in news because Lawrence Bishnoi case has tested how for international criminal the cooperation can go when the accused is already facing the proceedings in India. Okay, so we can see that US indictment has triggered a likely formal extradition request. Okay, it will provide a legal framework. Okay, but India retains judicial and executive discretion to postpone or even to refuse. Okay, moreover, it is expected that the case will likely to be a year-long battle between the countries. Okay, and the ultimate thing has to be balancing the rule of law with the national security and national sovereignty for each country. Okay, please do let me know what all are your views on this. Okay, and should India make this extradition or not? Do let me know in the comment section. Okay, moreover, the flat 50% discount on all our UPSC courses. Okay, this offer is only for today. You may use the code SRM Live to avail maximum discount and be part of our complete P2I batches, which are based upon the SMART model of preparation and are your best bet. Okay. Moreover, please do join me in my Telegram channel, because simultaneously I'm also taking up various series to build your foundation for UPSC exam. Okay, so daily at 3 p.m. on the same channel, I'm taking a smart NCRT series. Clear? And in this smart NCRT series for Indian polity, I'll be covering all NCRTs of Indian polity from class 6 to class 12th. Okay, so this will help you to build a strong foundation for your upcoming UPSC exam preparation and for your other competitive exam. Clear? So this was all from my side today. We'll see you all in the next session. Jai Hind.